Hey guys, it's Mark and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk about how we finished this area above the front seat. So stick around, we'll show you how we did it. Yeah. So when we finished our last video, we kind of talked about that this was the next thing we were going to be working on. And to be honest, I've been sitting here and I'm not sure what to do. It's a really complicated area, this above the headliner. It's curved this way, it's curved this way, so I'm not really sure what to do. But I want to get this thing finished. I'm thinking of maybe almost like a face frame. I did spend a bunch of time and made some cardboard cutouts, and eventually I ended up with this piece of wood, this piece of plywood that does fit over it. Right, so think of this with maybe a rectangular hole here and another one here that we can access stuff through, or maybe just one big rectangular hole, but at least it'll be finished. The problem is I don't know how to. Now I've got a piece of wood that fits up there, which I can use as a template, but I'm not really sure what to do from here. So that's where we are. So my first thought was to take advantage of these built-in plus nuts and build something that's screwed into here, but unfortunately this thing isn't straight. It's on this weird angle, so I'm not exactly sure how to do that. I actually I ripped some long pieces of wood that actually fit in here, but there's really no way to screw it in. So I'm gonna hold these in case I can use them later, but I'm not really sure what I can do with them now. So the next thing I did was I pulled down this piece of fabric right here, and I noticed that under here are a bunch of holes. Specifically, there are 5 holes that held this thing in place. 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm wondering if I can find those holes down here. That's probably, looks like that's one of them right there. So I'm wondering if I can make this big enough where I can put a plus nut in here, like we did about 20 videos ago in our framing series, and then screw through here, and then basically screw a piece of wood that sits right along here. Where is it? So I'm thinking something like this. By the way, this is not wood, this is PVC, and I only bought it because it bends to this this weird curve pretty well. Wood will not do it. Certainly 3/4 inch wood will not. Maybe 1/2 inch will, I don't know. But that is the plan. If I can figure out a way to screw this into here, I can probably attach a piece of wood to the front and then butt it up against the ceiling. So I don't know, we're gonna try. I found where those 5 holes were, and I marked them with a pencil, the 5 holes that went through this piece of fabric. So I found them and I marked them, and then I went ahead and I drilled into them with I think this is a 3/8 inch bit. And to be honest, it was a little tight. I couldn't get the plus nuts in, so I sort of had to wobble this thing around to make the holes big enough. But now the plus nut will fit, where is it, into the hole. So now I've just got to use the Astro tool and get this thing in there. And this might actually be the start of something that works. These are really good. If you haven't watched our framing video, we use these things extensively throughout the van. They're called plus nuts or riv nuts, and they really are holding a lot of the van together. They're holding a bunch of framing in place. They're holding the cabinets in place. So basically what they do is they screw into they attach to the actual structure, the frame of the van, and then you can drive a 1/4-20 bolt into it, and it's about as solid as a connection as you can get. So that's what I'm trying to do up there to hold this piece of wood up. So I've got those drilled, and now I'm going to get the plus nut tool out and install them. All right, so I've managed to put the 6 plus nuts in. These are 6 1/4 20 plus nuts down here. I tightened it in with that Astro 1415 tool, 1450 tool. So now I should be able to screw 1/4 20 bolts into that and really hold anything up, because it should be really solid at that point. This is not bearing any weight, so the wood will go right on top of this. So that's the plan. I don't know if this is going to work. Don't know. By the way, if you want to see more info on these plus nuts, go back to our framing video. I'll try to link it above, just so you can see how this tool works. Handy little tool to have. I think you can do without it, but I have no idea how. But that's what came of it. So now we've got to figure out what the next step is. So I need to kind of figure out where these plus nuts are in relation to the wood. So what I did was I took this piece of PVC, I'm going to use this as an example, and I stuck it up in here, and basically I drew a circle along these cutouts all along this piece of wood. So at least I've got an idea where the screws, the bolts are going to go. Now what I've got to do is figure out how far in they need to go. And I think it's right about at 1 inch. Yeah, looks like about 1 inch. So basically what I'm going to do is the holes that I've marked, I'm going to move them in about 1 inch all the way down, and then I'm going to drill 5 holes, 6 holes, and hope that they line up with these. That would be fantastic. Okay, so holes are drilled, the plus nuts are in. Now it's time to see if this is an epic fail or not. I'm so negative. All right, it's gonna work. I think it's gonna work. All we need to do is have 6 holes perfectly aligned. Why should that be a problem? All right. I'm going to start with this one. So this has ended up working out pretty good. These 6 bolts all went in, and they're holding it real solid. They're not tight now, but it's still pretty solid in place. It's not going to bear any weight anyway. So what I want to do now is, I think the thing is angled up a little bit. It looks kind of weird. So I'm going to take these pieces of wood that I cut on the table saw, and I put these little holes where these plus nuts are. Those things on top, I was thinking that if I put those on top, I could bend it, but it's not working out like that. So what I've got to do is shave a little bit off of here with the table saw, and then I will use them to hold the top. Let me show you. And I'm going to basically stick these in here. I'm going to have to shave a little off the top, and I will glue them. Once they're shaved, I'm going to try to glue them against this and against this. So it'll sort of make this thing level, keep it from going this way, and it should hold it in place more. And then the final trim piece will sit on top of this and sit against the ceiling. So that's the plan, at least. And the reason I want to get this done is so I can build this cabinet and have it butt up against here. So still a little bit of work to do, but good progress. So I'm going to go home now and shave some of this off and come back and glue it into place. Hey guys, so it's the next morning. You can see I've already been at it a little bit. So I went home and I cut these pieces on the table saw like I said I was going to do yesterday. And now I'm just taking some construction adhesive to hold these up here. And what I'll do is, once they dry, should be able to give a support for the piece that's going to hang below it. If not, I could always put it, if it's too short, I could always put a couple of shims in there to level it out. But my goal is to make sure that this piece of wood, or this piece of PVC, holds on by these 6 rib nuts, and then has some support so it doesn't, the rib nuts are going to make it tend to curve up, and we don't want to do that. So these pieces of wood will hopefully give it some support. So let's get this last one in, and we should be set. All right, it's about an hour later, and actually a little more. Glue's dry, clamps are off, and I have gone ahead and put this piece of PVC back in, and it looked like it was leaning just a little bit down, angled a little bit down, so I put in, I'm sorry, angled a little bit up, so I put in some tiny little shims under there, and it seems to be sitting fine. So the face of this is going to sit on top of this ledge and rest against the ceiling. So we've got that piece already cut. What I did was I held it against here, kind of like this. I'll use this as an example. I held the face against here, and I traced on the inside. So I've got a line that runs on the inside of that, and now we've got to extend that line 3/4 of an inch up to hit this edge, and it should fit. Another one of the drawbacks of not having the van at home is this constant back and forth that we have to do when we forgot a tool, or left the tool there, or forgot the batteries, or the bits there, and the drills here. So I'm back at the house to cut this piece of wood. So let me show you what I'm doing. So if you remember, we had this piece cut, and that edge right there goes along the ceiling, and this is the edge that's going to sit on top of that ledge we just made. Now, I drew this from the back. Remember, I was standing behind it, and I drew this, but I need to be not even with the bottom. I need to be even with the top of that wood, so, or that piece of PVC. So luckily I have some scrap PVC that I cut off of that same piece, so I know it's the exact thickness. And Tania and I basically held this thing along this curve. It's hard to do with one hand, but we basically bent it around to that same curve. And then I drew on, when we had it held, I drew on the opposite side and came up with the inner line. So these two are 3/4. The difference in these two is the exact thickness of this. So I need to cut along this upper line, and then this piece should sit on top of that shelf that's in the van. And again, this is just a template. Once we have this thing done, we're gonna make it out of probably some 1/2-inch Baltic birch plywood or something. But this gives us a template to use for that area. Well, not too bad for a first pass, I guess. It fits. It holds itself up there. These little spaces here and here can be covered with trim, so I know that's not going to be a problem. I haven't figured out what I'm going to do with these ends where we've got this weird kind of curved spot in the van. I don't know if I'm going to follow that curve or if I'm just going to cut it straight. Either way, we'll probably hang a curtain rod here, which will cover this and that piece anyway. But seems to be working. It's a good start. To get an idea of what kind of opening we want, I left my scribe stuff at home. I don't want to make another trip home and back. So I basically took 2 of these shim sticks that they sell at Home Depot. I put them together. I put them here and ran my pencil along the length, and then did the same thing on the ceiling, just kind of held them together and ran a pencil line across. So now I've got this mark around here, and it goes to about here. So I'm thinking maybe that's the window that will get cut out to expose the headliner. I don't know. Maybe we'll start with that and then go from there. So it's a good start. It's much better than I expected to be, and it will finish this area because I really didn't like the way it looked. I really felt it need. I have an idea what to do above the cargo door because I saw a video on how to do that part, but this one and the one in the back were sort of all me. So just figuring out as we're going. But either way, I am done for the night. It's getting late and I am hungry. I know Tania has some dinner ready, so I will catch you guys in the morning. Okay, so next morning, Tania is not here. She's actually helping her mom do some gardening, but she told me she wanted a rectangular hole. She didn't want doors because she thought that was going to be, there's going to be nowhere to open them, and she's probably right. Also, there's going to be a cabinet here with doors swinging out this way. So a door here would just get in the way. So she said she just wanted an opening. So we've cut an opening. The plastic part of the headliner is here. So this will be our opening, and I guess what I'll do is round these corners a little bit, but this is just a template to figure out what to do next. I've also scribed out, let me show you this. I've also I used a pencil against here to scribe out the back of that on both sides, and then I got real creative and I taped a piece of wood here and just extended those lines all the way. So in fact, Yeah, that's what, in fact, I should have taped it. Now that I think about it, I should tape a piece of wood here and just extend those lines so I know exactly how to cut around this. Then the wood will cover this section and this and have a nice smooth curve. It'll probably end right here, at least I think. And we'll paint it and I guess figure out how to attach it here. Maybe some pocket screws and then hide this with trim, something like that. So I've got to get a piece of wood and cut out the real one. We can get this project done. Okay, it's about a day and a half later and this is what I came up with. So basically I took the old piece off, I used that as a template and I drew this onto a piece of 1/2-inch Baltic birch plywood and I cut it all out. So I ended up just getting a jigsaw with a really super thin blade and just kind of curved around these things until I got this piece. So it actually fits in really well. The next thing to do is paint it, obviously, but I've got to do a little trim work. I've got to build a piece to cover this opening. I need something to actually hold it in place, right? So I've got to cut a piece of wood and I'll probably attach that piece of wood to the ceiling and then install this from behind it. I'm gonna leave a little ledge here for LED lights, but I also got to take this piece off so I can kind of sand it down a little bit. I also want to trim out this opening because it's a little ragged and I don't want to see it. So, but yeah, so far so cool. So it's kind of a cool project, right? I wanted to cover this area. I hated the way it looked. Had no idea how I was going to do it. I think it came out okay. So a little bit of work to do, but we're on our way. 2 coats of white semi-gloss paint later and some 220 grit sandpaper, and this is what we've ended up with. So this is the actual piece. We've got some 1/4-inch Baltic birch plywood that I trimmed out and painted them the same color. I'm going to use that as trim around this opening here. I'll install that next. And then these are some leftover pieces of PVC. And what I'm going to try to do is attach these to the van, screw one into the ceiling and screw one into that kind of ledge that sits there. And that will sit behind this face, and then we'll screw or nail through this face into those pieces, and those pieces will be screwed into the ledge and screwed into the ceiling. So that's what's next. Okay, we're back at the van and we are in the home stretch. So the next thing to do is attach that piece into this area. So what I did was I took a spare piece of that PVC trim and I screwed it and glued it into those wooden pieces that were behind here. So that gives me a place to screw through the face into, and then I'll just have to hide the screws. Again, I want to make this so if I ever have to take this area down, I'm not tearing anything apart. I'm just loosening screws where I can. So let me go ahead and raise it up here. It will sit up here and screw into this, and then there'll probably be a piece of trim that sits on top of this, and the same with the ceiling. Okay, so you can see the molding is on. I messed up in a couple places, so I had to use regular plywood, but Tania will paint over this and make it look beautiful. So I now can screw through this into here, and then later I will cover those screws with something like this. A nice piece of trim which gives us a little ledge up top if we want to put in LED lights or something, which would be really cool. So let's go ahead and get that screwed in. All right, not bad, not bad. I was able to screw this into here with some wood screws. I screwed this piece into the ceiling with some cabinet screws I had left over, and then I was actually able to fit a drill into here and screw this face plate, screw this face piece, the main piece, into the back of here from the back. I was going to record that, but it basically looked like this. So the cool thing is if I need to take this down, really I just have to take these 6 screws out and the whole thing, and these 5, and the whole thing will pop out. So really easy to troubleshoot if I need to. The only thing left to do is to glue this piece, which side is out? All right, I attached this piece and clamped it in place. This is attached with poly seam seal, so it's white. I've also run poly seam seal across there to seal the edges, and that's pretty much what it looks like. I've got to wait for it to dry, take off the clamps, and then paint a little around it, and should be good to go. Hey guys, so our little project is done. I have to admit, at the beginning of this video, I had no idea what I was going to do. Kind of just did little bits and pieces going along, and finally came out with this. Pretty happy with the way it came out. I did a little painting at the end. I should never be allowed to touch a paintbrush. I should have waited for Tanya to do it. I made a big mess, but I'm sure she'll come along and clean it up and make it look nice. So thanks for following along. I guess if nothing else, you learn that if you want to finish the area above the headliner, you actually can. Most vans I see that are completed don't have this done, and I'm not sure you really need it. You can put a curtain on either side and cover most of it up, but I was determined to get something in there and pretty happy with the way it came out. So thanks for following along. Thanks for staying through all of this. If you liked the video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Tanya and I will be back next week. We've got some electrical to do. We've got this cabinet to put up and a few other projects to get started on. So thanks for following, and we will see you next time.